podcast exclusively for our esteemed alumni. Today, we have with us Mr. Adhitya Srinivasan, who graduated from this university in 2013, worked at Mission Desai Associates, then went on to pursue his higher education from the esteemed Harvard Law School. He then worked at international law firms like Herbert Smith Hills and Simpson Thacher and Bartlett Alumni. In 2021, he opened his own chambers. Having such an amazing experience in the legal field, we feel elated and honored to have you, sir.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
Now, starting off with this podcast, how do you feel about it?
Very excited to be here. As you know, I had a session in the morning where I was talking about the Data Protection Act. I'm glad to now be doing this informal chat.
How did it feel interacting with people who are so much younger than you in the very same place that you were?
I never actually thought of the age difference. I was just looking forward to having a talk with students from my university. So, in fact, I think there were a lot of people across the batches, and I could at least tell the age difference. Apart from the fact that I knew that I had graduated and they had not, I really wasn't aware of the age gap.
That's great. Now, can you share any funny or favorite memory that you have from NLIU's campus?
The thing is, there are so many favorite memories, it's difficult to try and point to any single one. One of the memories that comes to mind is when in 2009, around late August or early September, all of the seniors that I was close to across batches, including those who had graduated, had all come down to college at the same time. I distinctly remember getting this picture clicked in one of the clusters in EA wing of the all-boys hostel. One of the other memories is I was fairly close to one of our professors, Rajshekar sir, and in my fourth year and maybe the latter part of my third year, he would frequently have me over to have a cup of tea where we talked about a number of things, including politics. I think I would say these are two memories that come to mind, several others as well. It's difficult to sit down and list all of them.
That's amazing. Now, I was about to ask you that which is your favorite hangout place? Since you have already mentioned that you like was also waving, so is that your favorite hangout place or is it something else?
No. I mean, I spent a lot of time naturally in the old boys hostel, obviously because I was living there as well. But I'd say my favorite hangout spot was, like a lot of other people, I guess, Skywalk.
That's fair. Who was your favorite professor and why? Why did you choose him?
Well, it was Rajshekar sir. He was my favorite professor. He taught us economics and then law and economics in our final year. I think one of the reasons a lot of people liked Rajshekar sir is because he really understood the student who was coming to the university and taking these classes, and he would tend to see a lot of things from a student's perspective, which maybe many others were not able to, or at least were not able to do it as well as he did. The other thing is that at the same time, he always emphasized the importance of being good at academics and encourage people to do well at academics. And over time, I developed a personal equation with him, and it's something that I cherish and I look back fondly on whenever I think about my time at Boston.
That's rare having a personal connection with a professor, even after the university. Now, do you feel any peer pressure or anxiety while you were in college? If yes, then how did you deal with it?
So maybe not peer pressure as such, but I'm sure there were moments where I would have felt anxious or I would have been stressed, particularly in the run-up to examinations. I had the fortune of having some seniors who guided me very well, and they made it a point that I would take my academics very seriously. So I'm obviously very grateful to them. And in terms of how to handle it, I just tried to ease my own burden by pacing out when I would prepare for my examinations so that I didn't have to cram everything at the last minute. Of course, invariably you end up having these situations where despite your efforts to prepare, you still end up having to cram at the last moment.
Now, since you are still a senior to all of us, do you have any advice that you would give to us with that respect as to how to deal with the pressure on the academics?
One thing that everyone can do is actually recognize the fact that these things are stressful. These things can be anxiety-inducing, and to just generally be aware of that. I mean, the only thing I can really comment on in terms of how to manage it is to maybe spend some more time preparing yourself when you know that an event of which is going to be stress-inducing or anxiety-inducing is going to crop up. So maybe prepare for it in advance. That's the only thing I'm qualified to say. Things like stress and anxiety need to be taken very important.
That's right. Like last minute cramming up is bad. Which one was your best internship experience and what phase was it?
I think there were two internship experiences that I liked. First was in the summer of 2010 when I and one of my close friends, Vikram, who was a passionate, were interning in the office of then senior advocate Hindu Malhotra. She subsequently was elevated to the Supreme Court and retired as Supreme Court judge. It was an interesting internship because it was in summer, the courts were just closing, so we did not necessarily have a lot of work to do, but we had to find a way to generate work and generate ways to keep ourselves busy, which is something that I think Vikram and I did very well. Outside the office, of course.
So
that was one. So you asked me, I said there were two experiences. The other internship experience I really liked was when I was interning with the tax litigation team at PwC. I spent, I think, 3 months with them, and that was an experience in which I really learned everything I know really about tax litigation in terms of how to prepare for matters, in terms of how to read tax statutes, in terms of how to think about tax problems from a litigation perspective. So that was another experience I would rate very, very highly. Very enjoyable experience.
So from what I can conclude is, one of the experiences was amazing, not because of the work, but because of the company and the atmosphere that you had with Hindu Malhotra ma'am. And the other one was because of the right kind of work that you had.
Yeah, it's absolutely right.
That's great. I mean, what I can say to everyone is, in internship, it's not just about the work that you do, but also the company you enjoy, the work environment that you have been provided with. Now, since you have spent a while in Harvard Law School, can you contrast it with your life there as compared to the 5 years that you spent here?
It was very different at Harvard Law. It was a much more rigorous program because there was a lot that they were trying to achieve within a period of 10 months. The academic rigor was more exacting than it was at NLIU. I found myself having to do some level of reading every day after class in order to ensure that I could keep abreast of what was happening following lectures. I would point that out as the real main difference. It was a great experience, and naturally I wish I could have spent more time in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But the program has its own time limitation, so when that was over, I had to move on to the next thing.
So you utilized those 10 months to its fullest.
I would say so, yeah. I did a lot of things when I was there.
Now, since you have also been in the corporate field for a while, now, what is the work-life balance, if there is any, in the corporate world?
I mean, I suppose it's more of work and less of life. That's what the balance is like, and that's what a lot of people come to expect. Some people are better about it, some people are not so good about it. And ultimately what matters is whether as a practitioner or as a professional in the corporate world, you are able to find your piece with the balance that is offered with you. There will be some ability for everyone to try and realign that balance to a certain extent. And if you have the ability to do that and you're not doing it, then I think you're making a mistake. It's not without reason that they say that all work and no play makes Jack a dull.
So basically, you have to make time for yourself and not like a Google.
Yeah, and look, I appreciate that there are some places where it's impossible to make time for yourself. There are some organizations that work that way. But if you work in an organization where there is an ability or if it just means that you can be more efficient with how you go about your work and create or eke out those 1 or 2 hours, you should do that. And if you're not doing that, you're doing a disservice to yourself. That's what I think.
That's right. I mean, recently there is a general trend of overworking themselves, and even if there's a single hour which is not utilized, they feel like they are just wasting the time when they.
Yeah, I know all about that.
Yes, that's one way to go about it. We shouldn't do it. Now you've had a very broad professional experience. Now, how was the transition from Harvard to the corporate world and then starting your own chambers?
So I think I would even go before that. Let's start with my transition from NLIU Bhopal to my first job, which was at Adhitya Resources. It was a new experience altogether. And so you essentially have to start from scratch. Everything that you've achieved up to that point, I would not say it becomes meaningless, but it's not something that you can sort of wear on your shoulder and say that, look, because of everything I've achieved in the past, therefore I should be treated or regarded a certain way. Now, so you have to come to terms with the fact that you're starting from scratch. So I did that. It was a hectic routine. I went from Adhitya Associates to Harvard, as you mentioned. As I said to you, the academic rigor, which I was used to at NLIU, was different from what I experienced at Harvard. So I had to sort of realign myself mentally to be able to put up with that. That was an interesting experience. There were so many people from all over the world who come, so I made a number of friendships with a bunch of people. And then from Harvard to come, you leave the Harvard experience and then you come to, again, returning to the workforce by joining a law firm. Was again a new experience, which again had its own way which it humbled me. So I go through Robert Smith, Simpson Thatcher, then I come to leave essentially the corporate law world behind, and I get into litigation, which is a completely different field from what I had been involved in the past. It's not as structured as these earlier fields. It's not as structured as corporate law practices of an English law firm and the US law firm, respectively. It's an interesting experience trying to find a place for yourself and build yourself in this unregulated, unstructured kind of environment. But it's a challenge I enjoy, so it's been good.
Yeah, it's interesting and challenging, as you had said. Weren't you scared when you had the idea of starting your own chambers because you had to start from the scratch?
No, I wasn't scared at all.
You were excited.
I was excited. Maybe I should have been a little more circumspect. Maybe I should have thought about it a little more. But my view on these things is that if you keep thinking about things and finding excuses not to execute or implement them, you just end up not ever doing what you want.
Throughout your career experience, is there anything that you regret that I should have done this or shouldn't have done this?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I wish I'd come back to India earlier. I spent 3.5 years in London. Maybe that could have been a shorter period. Maybe that period did not need to exist. No, I think I should have spent some time over there, but I should have come back to India earlier.
Do you think that your working experience there has an impact on the way you work now?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a degree of professionalism which was instilled in me. I'd like to think that I have retained that level of professionalism, whether it's in terms of the work product, whether it's in terms of just generally dealing with clients. So I think there's something definitely that was imparted and something which I absorbed and continued to follow.
That was all very insightful. Now with this, we are coming to the end of the session. But before that, would you like to give any final remarks to the team, the student community, or the NLIU community, or the legal fraternity in general, anyone?
Yeah, I just say to the NLIU community in general that you should take pride in yourself, and you should, no matter what you do and where you do it, you should think about NLIU and how what you do can improve NLIU, or whether you can do something for the NLIU community. I think I would leave with these final remarks.
Thanks. So it was amazing having
you. Yeah, thank you for having me.